Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and I know it's been a while. I got lost in the Super Bowl and all the playoffs and everything that was going on. I had some prediction videos come out and got a lot of the predictions right. Got some wrong, but it just felt me leaning not towards making a video. I wanted to keep up on it, and I do have a lot in the works. Just lost a little bit of motivation, and it has been difficult to try to keep up. And like I have been watching a lot of draft you know tape and highlights and whatever I can to try to get the most information, being a massive Bears fan and knowing who to take with that number one overall pick, whether it be a quarterback or whether it be a trade back situation with a receiver. But we'll get into that. So I'm going to do a little bit of a podcast style. I have a quarterback breakdown video that's actually almost done, that's in the works that I'm working on. But I've just been trying to keep up. It's tough seeing a lot of other people putting out daily content, and I would love to be that way. So I need to get back into that. But we will work into that. Let's talk about what's pictured in the video here. Cody Whitehair and Eddie Jackson both released from the Bears today, saving the Bears a total of $32 million, which is huge for them. Especially with this offseason, having the big ticket name Jalen Johnson, who needs to be paid. You're going to be looking for free agent players for all the needs that they do have. Big ones being center, probably wide receiver, defensive line, particularly edge rusher. So a lot of opportunities out there. So they get 32 million more, bringing their total to 70 million, which is only shy of the Washington Commanders and Titans. And then post, like after the draft, after all the draft picks are factored in, they have $55 million available. So I think it's huge for the Bears. Sad to see them go. Both players that strived and were great players for the Bears. I'm sure any Bears fan watching this video can remember the good times with Eddie Jackson and his great defensive plays, as well as Cody Whitehair being a very solid offensive lineman who we thought would have the longevity, and it's just kind of fallen off. He's getting older, so it's understandable, but he just doesn't really have a place on the team anymore. Kind of got locked in at guard with Tevin Jenkins there, and Nate Davis, and then center. We put him back in there, which I actually thought might be a good idea. And then he started having the problem with low snaps, and it really wasn't working out. Lucas Patrick was having the same problem, also just getting murdered sometimes on the offensive line. And then there's the infamous video where I believe it's Nate Davis and Cody Whitehair were blocking each other. So, or maybe it was Lucas Patrick, and it was just not good. Cody Whitehair, it was time to be done. Big money on the books, now off the books. And then same thing with Eddie Jackson. I loved him back in like 2018 when he was making big plays, and especially back when we had Adrian Amos too. I think those two paired really well, and I was hoping Jaquan Brisker would kind of fill that role, although Adrian Amos isn't really playing that great anymore anyhow. I thought that he kind of had that similar style to where he could fill that strong safety role. Eddie Jackson could sit back like he liked to do, watch the quarterback, and be the playmaker that he was. Unfortunately, that wasn't happening, leaving safety as a position of need as well for the Bears. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna miss seeing Cody Whitehair and Eddie Jackson just a little bit. I mean, obviously, I know for me, I've been wanting them gone, especially just playing a lot of Madden. You kind of learn how the salary cap works and how when the players start to age out, it's kind of time for them to be done. It's always nice to have that story where they played with them their whole career and they retire with the team, but they were not producing. They weren't producing well, so it was time. Excuse me, time for them to go, and it makes sense to me. So what can the Bears do with that money? I think one big thing, the most important thing to me, first thing is Jalen Johnson. Let's get Jalen Johnson paid. Let's get him locked in. I saw some interesting things with the DB room and had some interesting ideas too as far as what they can do. If you get Jalen Johnson paid, I actually liked Terrell Lewis when I saw him playing a little bit, filling in when there were injuries last season. And so I thought it would be worth at least trying him at safety, because there is a lot of times where if you notice they're getting burned, but they still can tackle well and make big plays, it's worth it to have them try out safety. And I'd be willing to try that. I think we should draft one as well. Not necessarily early. We have the 2 first round picks, and then next one's a third. I'm hoping we can trade back into the second round to potentially take Cedric Van Pran if we can't get center in the offseason. But we'll see what happens there. I think after paying Jalen Johnson, I would absolutely love to see Danielle Hunter paired up with Montez Sweat on the other side. Kind of similar in just these like massive, strong edge rushers that can beat you in so many different ways. But I think it would just, I mean, we would be number one by far in the defensive line department, even just picking up him. I think Gervon Dexter, I'm hoping that he can kind of elevate and move forward. I liked Andrew Billings in the run-stopping game. I don't know if Justin Jones is going to be around. We were just talking about Whitehair and Eddie Jackson being gone. I think Justin Jones is one to look out for who could be gone, because although, I guess over the past 2 years, he was probably one of the more productive defensive linemen we had, aside from Billings and Sweat this year. But I don't know if he's necessarily going to have a place on the team. We'll see how the money works out, but that's going to be an interesting thing to follow. We'll see if Justin Jones is around. But I think Danielle Hunter is number one target as far as big dollar, big difference makers for the defense. I do think the defense still needs help. We've had a lot of promising looks here, but let's take a look at the defense. So you have Montez Sweat. You'd have Billings, you'd have Dexter, and I think Pickens will still have a spot on the team. Another reason I don't know if Justin Jones has a spot. Let's put Danielle Hunter there. Then you have Edwards, Edmonds, and Sanborn, who I love. Big Jack Sanborn guy. TJ Edwards has been great too. As a Wisconsin fan, I've loved seeing that, so that's been huge for the linebacking core. I think Tremaine Edmonds was a little underwhelming, not necessarily bad, maybe just a little overpaid. It makes you kind of think, well, what if you just paid Roquan the $2 or $3 million more, and then you had Roquan, Edwards and Sanborn? I think would be by far best linebacking core and probably one of the best that the Bears have ever had. But I still like Tremaine Edmonds there. I don't mind it. And plus side for Roquan, and he's finally getting the recognition that he deserves, making the All-Pro list and the Pro Bowl. As he should have every year in recent history with the Bears. Tough too, because Fred Warner's in the NFC as well, usually taking on those responsibilities. But then you move to the DB room, and you have Tyreek Stevenson, who had a very, very great rookie season. For a rookie, kind of reminded me of Jalen Johnson. Not really because Tyreek Stevenson was actually able to get some interceptions, but in the way that, when Jalen Johnson came in, we did still have Kyle Fuller, I believe. There was one overlap year, and we kind of knew Kyle Fuller was the guy, and he was the cornerback one, and then we go, whoa, this Jalen Johnson's guy is really good. Unfortunately, Kyle Fuller left, and actually in his case, he kind of fell off and just bounced around and didn't end up doing too much. He was also a little older in that case. But I don't want that to happen with Jalen Johnson. I don't want to lose him and then, be dependent on Tyreek Stevenson. I think for me, perfect scenario is we draft a safety, see how he works. In the meantime, I think you can put in one of those backups like Josh Blackwell or anybody that had, showed some potential last year and just fill that safety spot. So you'll have Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and Kyler Gordon for your corners. And then you have Jaquan Brisker and insert name here, whether it be a player, or maybe you get a cheap signing in free agency, or maybe you draft one, and they all could be starters. But I also like the idea of Terrell Lewis getting time there. Although he did make some mistakes, he was a rookie, and I liked when he was on the field. I thought he did make some really good solo tackles, and I just liked his energy, and I think he deserves a spot on the field. And the best way to do that, I hope we sign Jalen Johnson, but if we sign Jalen Johnson, would be to slot him in at safety. So personally, that would be what I would do. I'd like to see Terrell Lewis there. Don't know if that's going to work. Just like him on the field. But you look at that defense as a whole, having Montez Sweat and Danielle Hunter on either side, Pickens or Gervon Dexter and Billings, with Pickens rotating in, or maybe you do draft an interior defensive tackle, and then Pickens and Dexter are your depth guys. I wouldn't be against that too. I do listen to the CHGO Bears podcast, and Corey Wooten loves to talk about Johnny Newton. And I do like that draft pick out of Illinois. So that would be a possibility too. But the defense, I just love what I'm seeing all around. And then you got to figure out the offense. We'll talk about quarterback in a little bit here. But getting back to the topic of getting this money, what should we do with it? I think Danielle Hunter should be a lock. Depending on how much money he wants. He's 29 right now. I believe he just turned 29, so I think he'd still be 29. You could probably get at least 3 or 4 good years out of him. With what we saw happen with Khalil Mack, we get rid of him. He's still producing the whole time with the Chargers. Obviously not at the same level as when he was on the Raiders and the Bears, but still producing, and I think he definitely would have elevated the team this year if we did still have him on the team. And then other positions. I think Tyler Biadasz is my favorite center. That's a free agent. I would love to get Tyler Biadasz, especially because mine and everybody else's favorite for the Bears for center for the draft is JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson. And I think, he's kind of in that pick area where if it all plays out, there's rumors going around about Justin Fields to the Steelers because Mike Tomlin really likes him. On most sports books, the favorite for Justin Fields next season is the Steelers. They would likely have to give up that first round pick because I've heard a lot of rumors of trade compensation as like a second and a fifth or a second and a sixth from the Falcons, who do have an earlier pick. And I don't see the Falcons giving up their first, being at the 8th pick, and that would give the Bears the 1st, the 8th, and the 9th pick, which would be insane. But I could see the Steelers doing it because if you look at the draft, a lot of people are talking about Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels going 1, 2, 3. Then who else do you have? You have Bo Nix, you have Michael Penix, and you have J.J. McCarthy. Not in any necessary order. J.J. McCarthy, he's kind of been getting hyped up a little bit, so I could see him actually going a little bit earlier than anticipated, especially after the combine. I think he's going to have a successful combine, and that's going to raise his draft stock because a lot of the knock on him right now is, they ran the ball so much. And although his stats are good, it is a small sample size for a quarterback just because he didn't have to pass as much because the offense relied on running the ball well. So with J.J. McCarthy, I think he could move up after that combine. We'll see what happens. I've seen him rumored to, I think he's actually the favorite right now for the Vikings at pick 11. So we'll see what happens there. But I think depending on, what teams go for quarterbacks, the Raiders are at 13. You got the Vikings at 11. You got the Falcons at 8. They could all go for quarterbacks. And if they all do, you're not going to have, there's no quarterbacks left for the Steelers to take. And they're going to have to pick from the scraps in free agency again, unless there's somebody in the weeds that I'm not familiar with that can kill it for them. But so that I think it would make sense for me and for the Steelers. I don't think you're going to get a Justin Fields at the 20th pick personally. He still is only 24 years old. He did show a lot of promise. I personally, the thumbnail has Caleb Williams. We're going to talk about it. I'm personally, right now, I think picking Justin Fields and trading back is probably your biggest negative. Like, if you have 3 choices, trading back and keeping Justin Fields and taking Marvin Harrison Jr., or if you're trading back 1 pick and taking Drake May and also getting a haul, or if you're drafting Caleb Williams and then just staying put, I think that, unfortunately, I think Justin Fields being the quarterback is probably my third option there. And for that reason, I do believe that he could get traded. And I think that it makes sense. The Steelers make a lot of sense. He was rumored to the Falcons too before. And actually in my trade video, I was fairly confident that partway through the season he was going to get traded to the Falcons. Because that's a move that could have saved Arthur Smith's job over there. Excuse me. And I think that if he got him, that's an offense for him. Arthur Smith is now just the offensive coordinator over there. I'm sure he likes Justin Fields with how run-heavy of an offense he runs. You've got Najee Harris and Jalen Warren over there. You've got some when they want to block, a good blocker in George Pickens, Freiermuth, Darnell Washington. There's just so many. I mean, that is set up so well for a strong run game. and putting Justin Fields back there would just be a weapon. So I do really like that. I liked it about just as much with the Falcons. I think Arthur Smith is part of the reason for that. But in the event that the Bears, getting back to my point, if the Bears get the 20th pick, that would be a position where you can take Jackson Powers Johnson. And I think that would make sense because you're probably going Caleb Williams. Then you're probably taking a wide receiver or an edge rusher with the 9th pick. Maybe you trade back a little bit if you're really high on one. And then, you could take Brock Bowers too if he's there. Whoever's available of those positions is probably who you're taking. And then at 20, you take Jackson Powers Johnson and everybody's happy. You are pairing a rookie quarterback with a rookie center. That could mean that they're going to have 20 years together, and that would be great. So, yeah, I like that. I think Tyler Biadasz, though, if we can't do this trade and get Jackson Powers Johnson, with the 20th pick or wherever that may be, I do think Tyler Biadasz would be a huge signing. And then other like little signings that I like, I think I kind of like the idea of Curtis Samuel. You'd be pairing him back up with DJ Moore from when they were together with the Panthers. I still think he has potential, and he really likely would be like a wide receiver 3. I really only like that if we're getting rid of Mooney, though, because one thing that I'm not hearing enough of at all is I'm very high on Brendan Rice. I think it's just a no-brainer to, why would you not, if you're drafting Caleb Williams, why would you not want to take a receiver that he has a good rapport with, who was Jerry Rice's son, who you can get in the 3rd or 4th round? That just makes too much sense to me. But yeah, I think Curtis Samuel, moving back to that, I think would be a good pickup. People are talking about Calvin Ridley being available. I don't necessarily want to overspend. I don't want to have to do like a Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. And, if you're getting these top tier players, you are going to have to pay for them. And I don't want to, Cole Kmet's making good money. DJ Moore's a big contract. I don't want to have another massive contract for a receiver, and that's why I feel like we'd be better drafting one. I think if whoever's left of Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, and Brock Bowers, I don't mind taking one of them at 9. But I'm fine with any of that. I think the free agent priorities, though, need to be edge rusher first. Then I would love to see a center, at least just another center, because even though it was a small sample size, I think Dan Feeney was probably our best center as far as just consistent snapping the ball in like a normal like quarterback position, like so he can just catch it and then the play can go on. But that's sad because like love Dan Feeney. I have the mullet. He's got the mullet, and he looks like a man. But on the other hand, we need to do better. We need to have a better center than Lucas Patrick, Cody Whitehair, and Dan Feeney. So I'd like to sign a center. Again, Tyler Biadasz is my favorite. There's a lot out there that I think would be good signings. I think if you're signing Biadasz, you're probably signing a starter, and then you are signing a starter, and then the draft probably don't have to worry about as much. But definitely edge rusher, center, and then safety, I think, are the biggest priorities. And I'll go on. I'll look further into those. Obviously, I've named a few names, but I want to look further into each position. We'll go over that in another video. Let's get to the third part of the thumbnail. Caleb Williams. What should the Bears do? This is the biggest question that all Bears fans are asking. It's a little split, but I saw towards the end of the season until now, there was a massive change from stick with Justin Fields, all over Twitter, Instagram, whatever social media. It was all stick with Justin Fields, trade back, get Marvin Harrison Jr., and then, build around the team. You're probably getting a haul for the pick. I had an interesting season as a Bears fan. If any of my friends are watching this video, they know that there was a stint of time where I really liked Bagent's preseason. I actually ordered a Tyson Bagent jersey just off of some like cheap Chinese website, DHgate. And I ordered that to have it later in the season because I was a big fan of what Bagent was doing. I liked what I saw in the preseason, and sure enough, he did work his way up into the backup spot. And I thought he played fairly well for being a rookie coming out of Division II. Yes, he threw a lot of balls high. Yes, he made some really bad choices as far as throwing into triple coverage. But quarterbacks do that all the time. If you look at like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they'll throw it up into triple coverage all the time and trust their guys, and that's something that Justin Fields doesn't do. He has to see the receiver open. He can't throw a receiver open, and he struggles in that department. For lack of a better term, he just struggles in that department. So for me, I liked what I saw. So there was a period of time where I had a Bagent jersey. I was cheering on Bagent. I was hyped for Bagent. I liked the story, the Division II undrafted rookie coming in and going 2-2. At the end of the day, I think it's a discredit to him if you say that he can't be a starter. I think it's just wrong. People say because he was undrafted, he can't. And people make excuses for Justin Fields about how he's not surrounded with talent, but then when it's Bagent, and he actually, statistically, as a passer, does damn near as well as Justin Fields. Sure, the interceptions were really bad, but I felt like knocking him for only 4 games in, 4 games starting was wrong, whereas Justin Fields has started, 38 or whatever it is games. So I liked Bagent, and I was like, let's get Fields out of here. Let's see what another quarterback can do in this offense. And I was happy we got to see it. I think everybody kind of determined that he's not the guy, but I really would love to see him get a shot somewhere. Don't think it's going to be on the Bears with Justin Fields being there now and having the first overall pick. But let's move back to the topic here. So Justin Fields late in the season, I was kind of calling for, the last probably week 15, 16, 17. I was like, take Caleb Williams, let's take Caleb Williams, let's take him. And everybody's like, well, do you really think that he's going to be better? I'm like, I can't tell you that he's better right now, but it seems like his ceiling is higher. I didn't want to confidently say it. And this is in like Twitter and Instagram and group chats and whatnot. But I didn't want to confidently say that I think Caleb Williams is going to be the guy. There's been the character concerns. So I was kind of on the fence. And then I watched the film and I was like, holy shit. Caleb Williams he's an animal, and hopefully a bear, if any animal. But the Bears have not ever drafted a quarterback like that. They take Trubisky, they trade up 1 pick to 2 to take Trubisky, and that's fine. But we've never, in my opinion, we've never had an opportunity to get or taken an opportunity to get a quarterback like this that's considered generational. I don't love the Mahomes comparison. I think his play style is similar to Mahomes, but I think it's just crazy to make a comparison of a college football player to Patrick Mahomes at this point. But yes, he does have that improviser play style like Mahomes. But getting back to where I was, so 6 weeks, 15, 16, 17, I'm thinking, gosh, get Justin out of here. Let's get Caleb and let's start over. And then week 18, I was like, man, is this really the last week I'm gonna get to watch Justin Fields on the Bears? Because he is a very exciting player. He did look a little bit better in those last weeks, but the improvement was just not there. And I said from very early on that I had a problem with how long he took to hold on to the ball. And even in his draft year, and his first season playing, everybody's going, the offensive line sucks, it's horrible. And it was not great. I will give it that. I don't think it was great, but it was better than every single person that I saw on social media that was absolutely dogging it. It was better than that because Justin Fields had one of the longest time to throws in the league and one of the longest pocket times. Everybody always says, his time to throw is high because he can scramble and extend the play. That's not the case. His pocket time, which not a pocket quarterback, I don't think, his pocket time was the highest in the league in his first season. And we're talking his first full season, not the switching with Andrew Luck. Oh my gosh. Andy Dalton and I think it was Nick Foles at the time. Not that season. We're not counting that. But his 3 full seasons. And or I guess he kind of switched in that first season. Regardless of the point, his time to throw and pocket time was one of the highest in the league. Then we moved to the next season, and still highest in the league. And it actually got worse. It got longer. It went from, I believe his rookie season was like 2.6. Then he went to 2.7, and this year it was still 2.7. And then time to throw was always over 3 seconds, which it was always towards the end. I want to say Russell Wilson had a longer time to throw, and there were some other names down there, but they were all just very long. And you can't blame it on the offensive line when your quarterback is taking longer than everybody else to throw the ball. And if you look at like Patrick Mahomes, he also has a very high time to throw, but he also, until they got the offensive line figured out, his pocket time was not very high because he knew people were coming at him, and he would get out of there and scramble around. And then he is very good at keeping his eyes downfield and making the play. Whereas Justin Fields, he can sometimes, and he can make these big plays, but he has to see a receiver wide open to make a play. He's not good at throwing with anticipation. You'll see on curl routes, the receiver will be turned around with their hands up, then the ball is thrown. That's not acceptable. You need, if you see how the DB is playing the route, you need to, as the receiver's turning around, they need to go like this, and then boom, ball's in their hands. It can't be, you can't be releasing the ball after they've completed the route in that case. And it happened a lot where there was a lot of throws that Bagent made that I don't think Fields could make. And you can say that he wasn't given a great opportunity with having, not a great receiving core early on, as well as, Luke Getsy was probably not the guy for him. That's another reason that I wanted to see Bagent, because he's a different quarterback, a different style of quarterback, and I think a quarterback that would suit a Getsy system more. That's actually why I think, if the Raiders, I would be interested to see how Aiden O'Connell can do in that system, because although their O-line isn't great, I think if one of those offensive linemen fall, like Joe Alt or Olu, I think if they get a nice secure left tackle, I didn't necessarily think Aiden O'Connell was that bad. And I think there's a couple teams giving up on their quarterback too soon, like Sam Howell. Obviously, they have the second pick, so it's kind of like, that's not like the Bears per se, but I thought Sam Howell did a pretty good job. Sure, he threw a lot of interceptions. He's a rookie quarterback. I think if they didn't have the second overall pick, they'd probably be riding with him. I think if the Bears didn't have the first overall pick, they'd probably be riding with Justin Fields. But anyway, back to the point. I think Justin Fields is a great football player, but I don't think it's going to work on the Bears. I also think Shane Waldron's offense isn't necessarily going to be oriented towards, Justin Fields' play style. I think, he's had Stafford and then Geno Smith. You could kind of make a comparison, but I would just rather have your offensive coordinator that's going to call plays. I'd rather have him come in than you have your generational talent star quarterback come in at the same time, and then they have probably at minimum, I would say 3, maybe 4 years to grow. And all the quarterbacks that Shane Waldron has had success. In most recent history, he made Geno Smith look like a great quarterback and made him relevant in the league again. So I feel like with some of the talents that he has there, I feel like that could help finally, produce a quarterback in Chicago, as we seem to never do. And then let's look at Caleb Williams. So I talked about how I was kind of back and forth, and then I was like, man, are we really going to lose Justin Fields? But I'm kind of fully sold at this point, and I'm at the point where I think I could be okay if we keep Justin Fields. Like, I'm going to cheer for whoever the quarterback is, regardless of the situation, because I am a massive Bears fan. So whatever happens I'm going to appreciate, and I'm going to cheer for him. I really like the situation, especially with the young talent, because if you look at this year, so let's say we skip out and we trade back, draft Marvin Harrison, and Justin Fields has another off year. Next year's quarterback class does not look great as of now. That doesn't mean somebody can't shine. That's happened in the past. And teams have actually reached on quarterbacks before in a certain draft class because they're worried the next year won't be good, and they're worried they need a guy. And I think you can get burned that way. So I don't want the Bears to do that either. But if you look at next year's class, that's not supposed to be great. And not that the Bears need to have a massive Super Bowl window, but the bigger the better for me. And you've got so many younger players that are kind of entering their prime, or maybe have already been in an early prime, that if you draft a quarterback now and you do have your coaching staff, you're going to have at least 4 years with a quarterback that is getting paid a very small contract in comparison to, like the top quarterbacks in the league. And I think it would just benefit us so much more because you have, you're going to have DJ Moore, Montez Sweat. They're going to be around for the next 4 years. You have, I would love to have Danielle Hunter, who I mentioned earlier, we could have for 3 or 4 years. If you look at our offensive line is very, very young. But if you look up like pass rush win rate and then run win rate for the centers for the interior and the tackles, we were top 10 in a lot of categories for them. And not to say that they're a top 10 offensive line, but I think with a competent and a good center, I think that completes that offensive line, and they're all going to be young. Who's going to be the oldest? Nate Davis, who I believe is going to be 27. Like, that's just it's a great platform to start with for a quarterback. You're going to have DJ Moore, who is top 10 receiver. You have Cole Kmet, who in my opinion was a top 5 tight end. Realistically, you probably have to say like top 7 or 8. I think you can put him into that top 5 category just with his talents all around. I think he's probably deserving of it. It's tough though when you have, Kittle, Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson, and Laporta. You probably have to put them at 5, but I think Komet's got to be right behind Laporta, so put him at 6. So you have top tier tight end, top tier wide receiver. You're probably going to get another receiver, whether it be maybe in a trade or if you're drafting one at 9 or, Tyler Scott really hasn't been given a very good opportunity. He's had some problems with the drops, but Darnell Mooney is the jugs machine champ and has one and uses it all the time. I would assume Tyler Scott's getting in there and maybe he's learning some stuff from Mooney. Maybe Mooney sticks around. I still think he's talented. I think he's just been neglected by Fields. But if you look at everything that we have going for us on the offensive line, it just seems so much better to put a new quarterback into that and start from there. And then you can build around it because you're paying Fields next year. You're going to have to pay him, and that is going to make it more difficult to add weapons. You can talk about, well, you could get Marvin Harrison Jr., and then you don't have to pay him for 4 years. But I don't want to take that chance with the little improvement that I've seen from Fields to where I believe it just makes a lot more sense to take a quarterback and move forward. And then you can look at the other situation I brought up earlier. I am not against trading back 1 pick, probably getting a haul. Let's say you can get 2 firsts and a 2nd for moving back from 1 to 2, and you get Drake May. That's worth it to me. I think, people that talk about, we should trade back and get a haul and get Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think Drake May. I've watched a decent amount of film and highlights and tape and whatever you want to, like, I watched a lot, especially the top 3 quarterbacks in Williams, May, and Daniels. I'm still working on the other ones, and that's why I haven't gotten a quarterback breakdown for the draft video out yet. But I think if you look at those top 3, there's so much talent. And when I first went into it, I was like, some people said Caleb Williams is 1A and Drake May is 1B, and then I watched Caleb's film, and I was like, I don't know about that. And then I watched Drake May's film, and I went, maybe, he's up there. And then I get the flashbacks that everybody does of, we're going to take a UNC quarterback at 2, huh? And then everybody thinks it's going to be Mitch Trubisky. I don't think that's fair to Drake May. But then you hear all the good stuff about it, how good his character is. And you hear Ryan Poles talk about how we haven't decided on who we want at quarterback yet because we need to do the interviews. And it sounds like Drake May would interview better than Caleb Williams. And I'm sure that Washington really wants to bring Caleb Williams home. So if you can get a haul for it, Drake May they talk about the prototypical type quarterback. I think he's a more athletic Justin Herbert. I think he kind of has a little bit of Josh Allen in him in Drake May. And I'm not against it. I think having the ability to get the picks and get this potential for extra talent to build around Drake May could be better than Caleb Williams. Unless you really think that he is going to be Patrick Mahomes, I think you at least have to listen to that idea. Now, it's an interesting situation. So I mentioned earlier that I think Caleb Williams, picking him is probably my favorite idea, but I think very close is this trade back, take Drake May, get a load of picks, and then move forward with him. And then the third option would be trade back probably to 3 with the Patriots, and then take you're getting a haul, and you're probably getting Marvin Harrison Jr. So I think those are all viable options, but it's going to be very interesting what happens moving forward. I think for me, I want to have the quarterback. If you look at the greatest Bears quarterbacks in history, there's obviously like Sid Luckman is super long ago, but we still talk about Jim McMahon, the punky QB. We still talk about Rex Grossman just because he so happened to end up in a Super Bowl. We talk about Jay Cutler, and those are really the best quarterbacks. Mitchell Trubisky, actually, if you look at statistically, is better than a lot of those. I think it would probably, if you look at stats-wise, it's probably Jay Cutler, Mitchell Trubisky, and then Eric Kramer is probably up there. And some of you probably don't even know who Eric Kramer is. He was a late 90s Bears quarterback that holds the record for passing yards in a season with like 3,600 or something, which is not impressive. We need to beat that too. I don't know if Justin Fields can do that. I think I mentioned to some of my friends who might be watching this video now is I think Justin Fields' career could end up being like Michael Vick, where he's a good quarterback, he's memorable. We go, wow, look at how electrifying it is for him to run, but he never wins anything of any substance and never really gets to that next level. Like, sure, Vick was the first quarterback to rush for 1,000, but it's just If you could have told me that on this Bears team you could have prime Michael Vick, I don't know if I'd want that, because he wasn't winning for his team. And he got on a Madden cover, and that was cool and exciting because he was kind of the first to do that. Obviously, there was Steve Young in the 90s, and Fran Tarkington and Randall Cunningham, and there was others before it, but nobody really did it on the level that Vick did. And I think Vick probably on the 06 Bears when they went to the Super Bowl, maybe you win that Super Bowl. But I also can't say that for sure, because he wasn't necessarily this big winner. So if Justin Fields is going to be a second coming of Michael Vick, I would like to move on and take Caleb Williams or Drake May. So let me know what you think down below, how you feel about that. Obviously, I'm trying out something new here, kind of the podcast environment. I'm just by myself. I would eventually have some other people come on. I've got a different space that I can set up for that. I'd like to communicate with some other Bears fans, see what's going on. But for right now, this is what I'm doing. Again, just want to talk about the Bears. Love talking about the Bears. And I have so much on my mind. I could probably sit here for hours and hours and just talk. So I'm going to do this. I also have, I was going to do I was thinking about doing just like a daily 30-minute podcast. What are we at here? We're at 40 minutes. I was thinking about doing a daily, I'll tell you my plan here, because I'm going to talk to you about it. I was thinking about doing a daily just football podcast, and they'd probably be about 30 minutes a day, and then one day a week I would talk about the Bears. But I have so much knowledge and love and passion for the Bears that I feel like a lot of those might just turn into Bears. So I also thought about, do I alternate, and I do, if I do Monday through Friday, I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday is football, and then Tuesday, Thursday is Bears. I think for me, I'm still working 40, 50 hours a week, and it's been tough to try to make the graphics for the videos that I've wanted to make and, find time for that and try to make that all to work. So I think the podcast is I can still get the thoughts out that I want and talk about, some of the statistics that I found and reasoning for why I have my ideas, but I don't have to put everything together. Again, not because I'm lazy, but I really just don't have the time. So let me know what you think of this platform. See if this is good. I am going to also try to get this to go to Spotify, because as you can see, you were just looking at me the whole time. Sure, we got the great Bears greats at the top of the screen there, with the numbers and little graphics and shit, but it's not you don't need to watch. So thinking about putting it on Spotify. That's where I listen to all my podcasts. And so let me know what you think down below. Should I keep doing this? Do you think a podcast is a better format, or did you like some of the videos going over, the weekly picks and how that all went? I do intend on doing that next year, but just let me know down below. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day.